Inuvialuktun language programs have been ongoing over the past 20 years or so. In trying to maintain our language and beliefs, we have had to overcome many obstacles, such as funding and trying to keep qualified teachers in the schools. As our language is slowly vanishing, more and more effort should be put into trying to help in any way we can. We are glad to see children in the schools have a chance to at least become familiar in our language and culture. We take you to a day with Inuvialuktun instructor Sandra Ipana at Sir Alexander Mackenzie School in Inuvik.
Mason din kalamek. Kit tayo nakting ata. Dalimat na noyat dahayom hinani piraktut. At dawhek imamun at haktok. Hihamat ihingokut. There's 5 little polar bears playing on the shore. One went into the water and then there were 4. Just like those dalimat kaloyans. Hihamat na noyat dahayom hinani piraktut. At dawhek imamun at haktok. What's after hihamat? Hingahut kihingoktit. Pingahut na noyat dahayom hinani piraktut. At dawhek imamun at haktok. Malakaw kihingoktit. Malakaw na noyat dahayom hinani piraktut. Piraktut. At dawhek imamun at haktok. At dawhek kihingoktot. Alia hustunga. Ahin alaktok. Ginaatin. Say your name to the camera. This is Courtney Rowland. David and Olga Rowland Dutichanga. Elena Pingo. Anne and Charlie Kasuk Dutichanga. Tekunga, Doris. Doris. Tina. Leola and Lena Rogers Panninga.
Martha.
Who's Apaga? Apaga? William? Akaga?
Claire.
Ashlyn? Ubanga?
Ashley.
Alagom Dutichangona.
Kara. Tracy.
Akaga Tracy. Amos? Kinatin. Una Billy Kikwak and Rhoda Kikwak Dutichanga. Ay. Kinailvik. Yes. Akaga Sandra. Una Fraser Pingalu Pingalu. Yakaninga. Terry Apsimak. Ay. William Apsimaklo, Eva Apsimaklo, Dutichanga una. Kinailvik. Eh. Yakaninga una. Kinailvik. Punch Lilian Lu Dutichanga una. Kinailvik. Corey Cardinal. Una Martina Cardinal did it Changa. You could ask him. Una?
Kabihak.
Gabehak. Dunuyokta. Daslak. Katehak. Kokhokta. We still never found the word to that one. Una? Aligala. Yes. Okay, una? Naga. Una. Dahek. Bingahut. Daliman. Okay. Kapsidun ukwa. Na. Dalimat malahot. Kapsidukwa. Dalimat bingahut. Kapsidukwa. Kulingokodailat. Kulit. It's chocolate. Malahot. Ariga. Ukwa. Dimikuda. Una. Arigag. Remember we make that arigag. Ukwa. Utuga. This month we're one of the things we're learning is body parts. So for everything that we learn for the head, then we have to learn everything that's on the head. Every month we have a different theme. You could see then how we go every month. We learn different things. Ata? Una atuna nakikiput. Ata, Mason, Dean, Terence, look. Okak minak. Nong hutikin. Okay, ata hek malhok pingam. Okay. Kebelek takto kubluya kanoki kumarunga kushik tudin kelangi hamane raurutin kebelek takto kubluya kanoki kumarunga kebelek takto kubluya kanoki kumarunga kushik tudin kelangi hamane raurutin kebelek takto kubluya kanoki kumarunga. Learning it good now. Damnalu, Mary unakimili. Atal hek malhok pinahut ke. Ata. Remember we have to read. Mary unakimali, kimali, Mary unakimali, mekwa kajeto. Okay, tayo ko nga. Paglangyak to. Akabit din. Dali na yun ni Ashen. Doris. Uva.
I almost made a big It hasn't finished.
Now go. Uva.
Finish the other.
Uva nga nail. At sino mo man?
Right on the top first. I just have to look on my piece.
R. E. Y.
You have a Alejandro.
Nasirtin. Uva nga Mason.
Well, how three?
Una. Ka. Uva. Uva nga Tyson. Atin.
I'm gonna put mine in back. Gone.
Uva nga Corey. Atin.
Alejandro.
Ura ka. Una. Dahil ko nga ako lago. Uva nga Doris. Naong atin. Uva nga Doris.
Boys right in the upper class.
On our second program tonight, we have an interview with Pauline Gordon. She's the Assistant Director of the Beaufort Delta Divisional Board of Education. Last week, they held a teachers' conference in Inuvik at Samuel Hearn Secondary School. She explains why and how it helps the cultures in and around the Beaufort Delta area.
Like what have you had to do to put this conference together?
I'm only responsible for the first day. I'll just clarify that first. And what it means is that I've had to pull together resources to show how our schools are changing to reflect the philosophy of the department, which is culture-based schools.
Okay, what's this conference about then?
I think both days are trying to show teachers how crucial it is for us to put together our ideas as a collective group on how we should best teach our students. And if we were to look at the statistics, over 55% of our students in the region are Inuvialuit, over 30% are Gwich'in or Métis, and 15% are non-Aboriginal. And yet we walk into any library within this region, and the literature, the film strips, the AV, cassettes and everything are all for the non-Aboriginal students are geared towards their culture. So we really don't have the resources to fulfill the mandate of the department, which is culture-based schools.
Mm-hmm. So you're trying to put forward more, like you say, culture-based programs that reflect the, I don't know how to put this, like you say, about 85% of the students in the schools are native. So you're trying to implement more of in the line of culture, language, traditions, that kind of thing into the school system then.
Yeah, I think it goes a little bit beyond that, in that we're trying to show teachers how really very easy it is to do that. It's not difficult. It's probably a little bit harder for those people whose comfort zones are relatively geared towards using books and things that are hard copies. It's much harder for us as individuals to go out and try to tap into a resource that's a human body, because you have personalities then. And it doesn't matter for what teaching tool you're using them for. It's really quite difficult. But because we're forced to do that in this region and in the territories, because our traditions have been like an oral tradition, we don't necessarily have the print backup that the southern cultures do. We're forced to do that, and it's we've just been trying to demonstrate to the teachers how easy that is.
And you're doing this also through bringing Inuk elders from other communities. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I kind of tagged on financially to a data gathering session that was being held here for the Inuktitut curriculum. We have Inuvialuit elders and Gwich'in elders here as well to act as resources for our teachers to try and put together some material, resource, or student activity, things for use within their classrooms and within the region.
Mm-hmm. Plus you have some non-Inuvialuit members that are present. You're integrating the two cultures together to put something together?
Not necessarily as presenters. We do have non-Aboriginal staff members, and the majority of the teaching staff here are non-Aboriginal. So what we've done is try to put them into groups where we think that as teachers they have kind of as a specialty areas.
And this morning you spoke about why teach our children about our culture. What was the main message that you wanted to bring forward?
Because I think everybody recognizes now that it's very hard as individuals to cope in the society as it exists today. There are just so many things that are being thrown at us. And unless we have a feeling of self, like of who we are and who we are as a people, as a collective Aboriginal group, we can't get very far, because there are just so many things that we need to cope with. Mm-hmm. So we have to try and instill within our children that feeling of being proud of being an Inuvialuit, being proud of being a Gwich'in, being proud of being a Métis, mm-hmm. so that doesn't matter what's thrown at them, they can survive.
So I don't know what to ask from here on. So your main message was just to say, okay, let's bring let's start teaching our children about the things that their elders did in the past, because the changing face of the school system is very apparent. Like a lot of our students don't know how to set a trap or mm-hmm. build a fire, or for that matter, survive in the bush.
Yeah, and it's a little bit more than just what happened historically for our parents or grandparents and our ancestors. What we're trying to teach people as well is that we're not a stagnant culture. We're evolving with the changes that are emerging upon us. We're taking on tasks that our parents would never have even assumed would happen to us. So we're still Inuvialuit. It doesn't matter we don't have all the skills that our parents have. We're still as much an Inuvialuit as they are. It's just that we have different roles in society now. But what we need to give our children is that feeling that, yes, you may not have all the skills that your grandparents have as far as land-based people go, but you are still very much an Aboriginal person, and to be proud of it.
How hard is it going to be to implement what this conference is all about? I mean, like, to put it into action? Is that a fair question?
Yes, it is. I think it would have been very easy for me to stand up and spout off how we want things to go, to complain about how things haven't been going. And it's a little bit more difficult to try and bring in resources such as students, the kindergarten immersion who opened with the prayer, the grade 3 students who adapted an elder story into a book, the teachers who are doing a number of units to reflect the cultures of this region. But in order for this to be successful, we need to show them the how-tos of how to bridge that gap between the philosophy of the department, which is culture-based schools, and what actually happens in the classroom. I think that's the difficult part is that these people have to digest what we've given them, try to decipher it within their own comfort zones as to what they were taught as educators as to how to teach, because this is different. This is very different than what they've been taught in university. So that part is difficult, and the task is on them. They're the frontline guys. I can only present to them what I would hope is happening in the region. So it was very crucial that I bring in examples of what's happening in the classroom, because they need to see that it's possible.
And one of the ways that you're doing this conference is breaking them up into groups, sewing, relationships, drum dancing, that kind of thing. Why is this?
I think we needed to target topics. We could have very easily just said, okay, we have 20 elders, we'll break them into 10 groups, and you guys decide on a topic. It's kind of like anything else. Once you be specific about something, the presentation will probably go easier. So that's the same for elders as well.
And how are these topics, like, obviously they came from the elders that came from the conference.
Some of them didn't. Others we kind of had experience with already, like Emmanuel Felix. Almost automatically people know him as the fiddler of the region. Alfred Francis as well, so that was almost most logical for us to ask them to do the fiddling. Others, again, are well known for the things that they do. Edith Haugak, Mary Ivik Rubin, I mean, they're well known for the sewing that they do.
One of the interesting things that I can see coming out of this conference would be kind of a compromise, more of a communication between the non-Inuvialuit and the elders, and it's good to see.
If anything, like if they get nothing more else from this, I would hope that they'd go away with a feeling of they've made a friend with an elder. And that was one of the reasons why we buddied up some of the elders with staff that are non-Aboriginal, so that they could get a little bit of information about the elder, get to know them a little bit better, because it would have been much easier if we paired them up with somebody that they already knew, but that's not really serving what we want to do today. We want the people who are non-Aboriginal to get a sense of where we're coming from as a collective group of Aboriginal people, and we want them to feel comfortable dealing with elders as resource people.
And it brings closer ties and more understanding between the two.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks. Maybe the other thing, just as a go-by, was the subject of upgrading your Inuvialuktun language teachers. Was it that? Or
Yeah.
what was it that Lynn talked to you about?
Oh yeah, upgrading the status.
Okay. Maybe you could just talk about that.
Over the course of a number of years, we've kind of, through manipulating the system, taken on stream Aboriginal language instructors. And unfortunately, what's happened is that because we don't have, as part of our PTR or people-teacher ratio, a part of that formula, anything to do with the language instructors. So where they've fallen is in a paraprofessional status. And because of that, it's a statement to the other teachers as to what class they actually fit into, and that's not really reflective of what our Aboriginal language instructors do. What they actually do in the schools are take on full teaching responsibilities, not as aides, but as full-fledged teachers. And they have to carry through making curriculum, because they don't have curriculum documents per se, make units, materials, because there's, like I said, the purpose of this whole thing is to show people how to make resources, and yet our Aboriginal language instructors were doing that in addition to a full teaching load, and they were never given the recognition before. So what happened over the past 2 years is that the department has said we will give interim teaching certificates to Aboriginal language instructors once they've taken either 25 hours of courses or an internship of a year, which is kind of like practice teaching. And but they've never given any of the boards the funds to upgrade them to full NWTTA status, which they're eligible to do once they've attained that interim teaching certificate. So what we recommended to the board is that they be recognized for the work they do through the upgrade of their status from UNW classroom assistants to NWTTA teaching positions. And that'll give them full benefits, salary dollars, and recognition as equivalents to other classroom teachers.
And this kind of a conference would give a lot of information, a lot of things, a lot of information that the teachers can start implementing.
Exactly, yeah. And if you were to look at some of the resources that some of the people brought, Mary Effie showed me some of the things she brought from McPherson from her Wiccan language class, and you just have to see what she does to realize that she's not a paraprofessional, she's a professional. She does really well in what she teaches, and yet we never recognize them before for the work that they actually do. We have Rosie Albert on stream, who for years has developed her own material and has shared with others. You just have to walk into her classroom to know that she's a teacher. Not necessarily your typical Southern teacher, because she uses a lot of the older types of teaching methods where you tell stories to discipline children, you tell stories to teach, to make a point. Very much a traditional educator, but very much a good educator. And somebody that we've for years considered a paraprofessional, but is very much a professional.
So she must be happy. Well, teachers like her are starting to saying, well, what I've done over a period of 10 years is finally coming to fruit. I mean, I'm getting something out of it, and it must be exciting.
Very much so, and those ladies are the ones that have been my guide for where I want education for my children and my grandchildren to be. It's through modeling from Rosie, from Mary Effie, and a lot of the other language instructors who have shown me there's a different way that we can do this and we can all be happy. For lack of a better term, cultural inclusion are things like beading, making caribou soup, making bannock. And that's not, and that really doesn't teach our kids how important it was for our elders to go through the motions of learning how to be patient, you know, when you're hunting, how to read ice in the spring when you have to travel, and how that teaches you patience and tolerance, because, you know, like we talk about stresses nowadays, but you think of all the things that our ancestors had to go through in order to survive as hunters and gatherers. I mean, if they didn't have anything to eat and it was, the weather was bad, you know, those were the stresses that they had to deal with.